Um, in the past weeks, we've had individual people playing. Today, we actually get a treat because one of our wonderful violinists, Anna Gendler, is married to a wonderful pianist, Sasha Tentser. So please join me in welcoming Anna and Sasha. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
So I always start the same way by asking, how did you come to play in the Lake Placid Sinfonietta?
Well, when we moved to Tucson, I started playing with the Tucson Symphony, and at that time, the conductor of Tucson Symphony was also a conductor of Lake Placid Sinfonietta. So he invited me to come along, and it was in 1994 was my first year with Sinfonietta.
And so have you been in Lake Placid every summer since 1994?
Every summer since then. Our son came to Lake Placid the following year when he was born. And it's part of our wonderful time spending. It's really hot in Arizona. And ever since we started coming to Lake Placid, I remember when Misha was little, around March, he started asking, when are we going to Lake Placid? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? So now he's all grown up, but we're like that. Is it time yet? Can we come?
And how disappointing this year that we weren't all able to be together there. So where are you broadcasting from today?
We're broadcasting from Colorado. We were very lucky, actually. We had extreme heat wave in Tucson. It also became a hotspot for coronavirus. And on top of that, we also had forest fires. Tucson is in the valley, and we had pretty severe mountain fire lasting for over 3 weeks. So the air was awful. And we're very lucky that we have a friend who has a second house in Colorado. He is also a musician. So we have a wonderful piano here. And we just, packed up our little suitcases, brought our dog along, and here we are.
Well, that's fantastic.
From here and taking hikes. And we feel so fortunate that we can be in the nature, because this is what we miss very much.
And how wonderful that you have a beautiful piano to play together on.
That's right.
We're really enjoying it. Yes.
Well, do you want to dive in and play some music for us? We have a very rich program today with some fantastic selections. Do you want to introduce the first piece?
Yes, the first piece is by Ernst Bloch. It's one of the 3 pieces that he composed as a cycle titled 3 Pictures of Hasidic Life. And so this one is the first piece. It's a short little piece in rhapsodic style, in cantorial style. And I must say that when we were growing up, this type of music was not familiar to us at all, and it wasn't available. So the first time we heard something like that, it was not long before we left Moscow. There was a concert put together by 5 cantors from the United States. And that was the first time when we heard this kind of music. And it was amazing to us that that even exists. So, we thought we would include this short piece also because the composer dedicated this piece to his mother. And I want to dedicate it to my mom, who was my first teacher. She was a violinist. She always told me, please play short pieces. This will be very handy one day. And so here's the day.
Fantastic. So this is the first movement of the Pictures of Hasidic Life by Ernst Bloch, and it's called Vidui, correct?
That's right, which means a prayer. Thank you.
Boy, that was beautiful. I truly love that piece, and I love the entire suite. Bloch is a composer very dear to my heart, and I love that he's able to write in a Jewish idiom without a question. I mean, the music is clearly Jewish music, but he didn't really see it as writing Jewish music. He saw it as writing just the music of his own heart, which happened to be Jewish. These are the sounds that were part of his soul, and this is a very beautiful piece. So the Vidui, it's actually kind of a timely piece to play because in about a month and a half on Yom Kippur, we say the Vidui, which is the confession of all of our sins. And so when you're playing this, what's going on in your mind, Anna, when you're playing this very contemplative, heartbreaking music?
Well, since it's written in cantorial style, this would be the cantor's part that violin is playing. So it is very deeply heartfelt music. And I don't really, I don't have the knowledge of Jewish tradition to necessarily put together with that, but I think this music speaks very directly to the heart of everyone.
I agree. And like all great music, it is universal. So when you were talking before about growing up in Moscow and there was a whole bunch of music that you just had never heard before, I guess because it was not allowed by society or by law, was your musical training very different from the musical training you might have gotten in the United States at a conservatory?
Well, I must say that the music programs in Russia were very well developed. It was extremely rich environment, starting from early days. We had very well developed, comprehensive programs for children of school age that were after school. We didn't have music in the public schools. It was a separate, separate setup where kids went after school, but it included many forms of exposure. Like you don't get just to play your instrument. There were music theory and music history and solfege and music training. The choir and string ensemble and the orchestra and regular performances. And my school was set up in such a way that we actually had yearly, regularly scheduled concerts in the great Hall of Moscow Conservatory. That was incredible to stand in front of this organ and on this huge stage all filled with light and perform this. This is just really incredible experience for a child. um, so I must say that we met a lot of outstanding teachers that were not just teachers, they were people that nurtured us in our lessons on the instrument, like violin lessons. They were happening twice a week. So that actually fostered a closer relationship with your teacher. And we developed a whole bunch of friends there and connections. And that was the way of growing up. It was a norm. We didn't know anything else. And the only thing is that now when we look back, we realize how authoritarian this style was, how along with enormous respect to the teacher, how rigid the system was. And with all due respect to tradition, how little was really encouraged to explore going to your own musicality and things that you're not able to express being a young person. Um, they were not fostered, you know. It was just, you know, set up in a certain way that you do what your teacher tells you.
It's a fascinating idea. And, you know, when you think about the Russian school, particularly when you're talking about strings and piano, the greatest pianists, the greatest violinists of an entire era were all Russian. And there's this rich tradition of amazing stylistic elements as well as technical elements. But I guess it would be suffocating if that's all you're allowed to learn and you're not allowed to depart. So did you find that when you left the conservatory, moved to the United States, that it was kind of a freeing from the shackles of that system? Or how did that feel?
Yeah.
Very much
In a
so.
certain way, yes.
Yes, you know, when we were growing up, it was pretty much, you know, the Iron Curtain was present. And with that, we were not allowed to travel or have any contacts with, you know, the rest of the world. And I remember when I was already in college, my teacher wanted to take me to international seminars, like music camp in the socialist countries,
Uh-huh.
but um, you had to go through a clearance, and I, you know, it it stopped right there.
I
So
understand.
a friend of mine, my best friend, went instead. Our teacher took her, and I remember it was very discouraging. But I remember when she came back, she looked different. She looked different. It was like she walked straighter, and she had different self-esteem, and she talked louder. And I just couldn't believe that this was the girl that I was friends with. So it's not just the music scene; it's everything.
This is fascinating. So actually, apropos of that, a question just came in from Pat Eldridge. First of all, were your parents musicians? And did your mother want you to become a professional violinist? Was that the path that she had in mind for you?
No, she didn't have this path in mind. However, I was exposed to music from an early age. My mother was a violinist, and she was a teacher in one of the colleges in Moscow, where she taught chamber music specifically, not violin performance per se, but chamber music. And she loved this field, and she played chamber music with her colleagues. And so they came to our house to rehearse, and I went to hear my mom play since, I don't know, I was 4, maybe 5. And back then it just felt like this was, again, that was the way of life. That's how I grew up. And I thought that that was incredibly enriching environment and beautiful, and I wanted to be a part of it. So when I was 5 and a half, I said that I want to try that too.
That's fantastic. And so where did you meet each other? Was this in Moscow?
It was in Moscow when we finished middle school. I went to college, and the first year in college you don't get to play any chamber music, and it was very sad.
Mhm.
Second year in college, I started playing just a little bit, and because my mom taught chamber music, I was able to play with her students. But it actually starts from third year that you get to play with other students officially. You enrolled in chamber music class, and that's where I met Sasha.
And was it love at first sight, or did you argue with each other about interpretations of phrases, and that's what brought you together?
Oh, interpretation. We had no idea what it, what it was. Yeah, we were put together to play a Mozart sonata, and just developed friendship, and that friendship strengthened and continued, and turned into a marriage.
That's wonderful. And Sasha, you've just been asked, did you come from a musical family? And how did you decide to become a pianist?
Well, my father was a musician, but he came from, like my grandfather had a klezmer background. You know, he played the fiddle by ear, you know, and my father was actually the first in the family who got a serious musical education. He went to the conservatory, but he did it late in life. I was already born when he completed his degree in Odessa Conservatory. Again, he wasn't accepted at the Kiev Conservatory, so he had to go to Odessa, which they had more benevolent rules, you know, for Jews at that time. And because he probably started kind of late in life, his first instrument was accordion, and he played piano also, but he always regretted that he didn't develop his technique on piano. So he wanted me to start early. So I was about maybe 4.5. He started to teach me the ABC, you know, and all that. And he taught me for about a year or so, and then I went to music school.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, let's go to some more music. And what do you have as your second selection?
So we would like to play two movements from Bach's Sonata for violin and keyboard in C minor. And the interesting thing about those sonatas that, you know, when you start your education, particularly as a pianist, that probably first thing you play would be by Bach, the earliest possible music, right?
Sure.
And we don't know what happened before unless you're a harpsichordist or organ player, right? But there was a lot of great music. But a lot of it wasn't really written out for a keyboard because the composers often created it for themselves. And so they left kind of like a shorthand chordal writing. And they called them trio sonatas, very often with a cello playing the bass. And Bach was one of the first really great composers who started writing out everything. And so in a way, these are real chamber music pieces. Piano always plays two parts, particularly sometimes three, but in this composition, always two parts. So left hand is like a cello, yeah, or a bass. And then right hand is sort of like a second violin or a flute. Yeah, and then the solo part, solo violin part. So I think these are really, really great pieces. So
fantastic. Can't wait to hear them.
We'll play two movements from the C minor sonata.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Here we go.
Wow, that is such incredibly beautiful music. So I have actually several questions, several impressions from that piece. I'm talking about the slower movement. When it first started, I was thinking, boy, this almost sounds like a romantic work. It doesn't sound like Baroque music at all. It just seems to be in a much more a much more 19th century sound. Do you get the same sense from that?
It's a very beautiful melody, and I love the interaction between violin and piano part, where the soft and kind of continuous flow of triplets really support beautiful melody over that. And there are actually very few dynamics markings, very few details that are marked. So there is a lot of room for interpretation. And we can discuss and argue about what's authentic Baroque performance.
Oh, no,
And
of course.
yeah, and
I am
how
not a
much
big fan necessarily of authentic Baroque performance. I think you make beautiful music, and if it sounds beautiful, it doesn't really matter what the style is. I think that Bach would have been all for that. In fact, I sometimes imagine that Bach would have been floored by the fact that his music's being played 300 years after it was written.
Yeah.
But boy, that was beautiful. And it also, at the same time, it reminded me somewhat of Jesu, Son of Man's Desiring, with the flowing triplets and that kind of contour. And
Yeah.
so
Operatic. It's operatic. I mean, Italian opera. He knew Italian opera. Yeah.
It's
Wow.
such beautiful music, and then you have this fantastic counterpoint in the faster movement. And what I wanted to ask Anna here is, I mean, there's lots of beautiful music for violin by Bach. Is there a difference in your approach when you're playing the accompanied sonatas as when you're playing, let's say, the partitas or the unaccompanied sonatas? Is it a different mindset, or is it all kind of one and the same?
I would say that I don't treat it differently than music for solo violin, because composer's style is very distinct in everything that he wrote, and just the way he expanded um, uh, the world of violinists by composing those 6 sonatas and partitos for solo violin is incredible. And everything had to be incorporated in that just one instrument with 4 strings and 4 fingers. And sometimes we have to pretend that this is the organ. Sometimes we have to pretend that this is a choral work. And they're all incredible pieces. I enjoy very much playing Bach in every configuration. You know, as an orchestral player, I get to play some oratorios that are incredibly beautiful. And it makes me understand the style of Bach when he writes for a single instrument. So it's very enriching to be able to play different music of the same composer. And that in that respect, I have to say that my life is greatly enriched by the opportunity to play in the orchestra. I love playing chamber music. Of course, this is everyone's favorite. This is our favorite. We are fortunate to be able to play with each other, even in this stressful times as we are in now. But just to be able to play music and still share it with people is incredibly important to us.
Well, let's talk a little bit about orchestral playing, because you have two ends of the orchestral spectrum, in a sense, that you get to participate in. On the one hand, you play in the Tucson Symphony, which is a full-size symphony orchestra. You do the great works of, you know, everyone ranging from Bach to Mahler to Stravinsky to Bartok to the modernists. And then you have the Lake Placid Sinfonietta, which in a sense is expanded chamber music. It's an orchestra, but it's so much smaller and so much more intimate. How does is the experience very different in the 2 orchestras for you playing the violin in these different size ensembles?
It is different, and I love it playing in Sinfonietta. I love the intimacy of this orchestra, the small number of players where everyone's contribution is important. I also play in the second violin section in Lake Placid Sinfonietta, where in Tucson Symphony I play in the firsts. So I get the best of both worlds. I get to play the melody, right, as a big section and contribute into this huge lush sound. And I get to play the subordinate part in Lake Placid Sinfonietta, but also discover that it's not just mechanical nee, 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 nee. It's, there is a lot of it that can be shaped, and it gives a participant a great pleasure to feel your own contribution. You know, we're only 3 people in the second violin section, and that makes a big difference. You hear yourself, you adjust your sound to others, and you get to hear all these amazing lines that are happening all around you. So I enjoy it very much.
Oh, that's fantastic. And when you're up in Lake Placid, what are the other things that you enjoy about being up there?
Oh boy. Well, over these years, we have developed a lot of friendships. And I know that some of our friends are watching right now. And hi, everybody. As I said, we count days to come to Lake Placid to hang out with our dear friends, to go hiking, to go on boat rides, and to explore mushrooms in the woods.
Yep.
Do all kinds of things, have meaningful conversations, catching up. And we try to stay after the season as well, just to enjoy the nature, this incredibly rich nature of this region. So I can't say how lucky I am to be able to just be there for extended.
It is a rather uniquely beautiful place. And I have to also say that the people who are there are uniquely terrific. That was my wife and I, when we spent the 2 weeks there last season, we left feeling like, wow, you know, just the people were so welcoming and warm and clearly loved the Sinfonietta, but they brought that love very much into the way they treated everybody involved in the organization, which was very exciting. So we have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask you that have come in. The first question is, how did you come to America? What was it that brought you here? What was it, just a decision you made, or did something specific bring you to the States?
Oh boy, I'm not sure that this is a question for happy hour. It's a very profound question. Well, as I said, we were growing up in a country where ideology and agenda were very prominent. And ever since we were young, we experienced that. And children are resilient creatures and they normalize whatever environment they're in. So I remember going to preschool and having performances of different people that populated Russia as a country. And back then there were not countries, there were republics. So in the republics, we learned different dances and we made costumes of all these different people that had their own land. They had Ukraine, and Ukrainians lived in Ukraine, and Belarusians lived in Kazakh, whatever, many of them. And we learned about traditions and national costumes, and were very involved in that. But well, there was no piece of land that was attributed to Jewish people. And somehow I had this question early on, like, where are we on the map? What is this that, where do we belong? And I met a lot of wonderful people in Russia, and we remain friends for life. And they're all different nationalities. But this little, nudging that you don't quite belong, it stayed. And since anti-Semitism was a very prominent policy for centuries in Russia, it lingered on some level. Like there was a quota getting into even a public school, better public school. Yeah, you had to meet, was it 3% or 5%?
I think 3%.
3%. So like when I wanted to go to a neighborhood school where they taught English and where there were better teachers, my parents had to make sure that there are not more than 3% of applicants that were listed as Jewish. And this nationality thing, it was written in your passport. You couldn't hide it. It was not your religious beliefs. I had no idea what it meant being Jewish, but it is like in your birth certificate, it says your first name, your middle name, your last name, your gender, and then number 5 is your nationality. And if you're born of Jewish parents, that's where you belong. And then I started experiencing things throughout high school, little incidents here and there that, I don't know, some people may take it maybe better than I did, but I could never make peace with that aspect of growing up. And then later when I went to college and couldn't do things that I really wanted to do, like go to a music camp or go on tour with my with conservatory orchestra. Everyone went into this on this trip of Russian American youth orchestra that toured the United States. I stayed behind. I didn't get a clearance, and so I knew there's something that I would like to see different. And when we came to the United States, we flew into New York, took a direct flight from Moscow to New York. We came as stateless. We were deprived of our citizenship. And we arrived at the Kennedy Airport and started our life here. And we were shocked to see how friendly, how open Americans are, you know, and it wasn't anything that we expected to see, but it was a much better environment right away, right? From day one, it was a better environment.
And what year was this?
It was it was
1990.
1990.
June 6th.
Yeah, we just celebrated 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It's an incredible story. And as a man who grew up as a Jewish person in America, it's just such a totally different kind of feeling. I mean, I never experienced any of those things. And we heard lots of stories about Russia. When I was a child, we would go to marches and raise money to support Soviet Jewry. But you know, it was just words. It wasn't anything that we were experiencing. And your telling of this story is very chilling and very moving. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. I don't talk very often about that, and the recent events in the United States kind of prompted us to revisit this whole situation of discrimination. And as I said, children normalize where they grow up and their circumstances. So for a long time, it was like we didn't know anything else. That was our reality. So we didn't quite, we couldn't quite express what it was that we were missing. But deep inside, I always felt that I don't quite belong.
Well, I'm thrilled that you're in the United States, needless to say. And it's also lovely to hear that the impression you had when you came here was one of welcoming and friendliness. That's a very encouraging thing to hear, especially in these times when there's a lot of argument, a lot of bitterness between people. I do think that these are things that we can grasp onto, that there is hopefully an element of being American that is welcoming. And
absolutely, yeah, that's the nature. Yeah.
And so what brought you down to Tucson, Arizona?
Well, at the time where we lived in New York, we arrived to New York, Moscow, New York, and you know, we taught violin piano privately, and then we decided that we needed to learn a little bit more different ways of playing, teaching, and you know, we were young, very young, and we had this offer from the University of Arizona, and we arrived there in Tucson. And so that's where we settled eventually. Anna started playing in the orchestra after auditioning, and I enrolled as a student, as a graduate student for doctoral studies at the university. And, you know, just happened that we stayed there and raised our son, who is 25 years old already. Yeah.
Amazing. And is he a musician?
Not presently. He had a good music education. I hope, you know, he had violin lessons from mom and
from the best.
He played violin and viola for a while, and then he switched to guitar, and now he wants to write. And
wonderful.
To the wonderful life here.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, there are not many places that are more beautiful than that part of Arizona. It's a lovely place to live. Right now, obviously, there are things happening that are a little bit frightening, and I'm glad you're in Colorado rather than in Arizona right now.
Oh,
but it sounds like it was a very, very happy happenstance that brought you down there, and I'm very glad that it worked out that way. And one last question that came in for you, Anna, is: can you tell us a little bit about your instrument that you're playing?
Oh, okay. Sure. This is an Italian violin that was made in the beginning of 19th century. It belonged to my mother, so I'm very fortunate that I didn't have to buy instruments. Back then, it was not anything super expensive, and my mom had, her father was a well-established doctor who loved her and wanted her to succeed in whatever endeavors she um, took. And so he bought this instrument for her. It has very sweet tone. I don't know um, if I am able to uh, demonstrate that on Zoom, but I enjoy it very much. It has a very sweet timbre, and it's not super powerful. And it blends very well when you play chamber music, especially if you play with strings. It doesn't cut through very well if you're playing with winds or with the piano, but this is the one that I brought with me to Colorado so I could teach on Zoom, could still have lessons with my students. And so that's what it is.
Well, that's wonderful. And so you talk about teaching and all that. You also are part of the Lake Placid Chamber Institute, aren't you? Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what that's all about?
Oh, yeah, sure. We enjoy teaching very much. We feel that it really enhances our understanding of music as well as our connection with people. And we try to inspire our students more than anything else because people come from all different backgrounds and they have, everyone is different and has different goals, but they want to learn the best and have joy from it. And so we teach quite a bit. I have students ranging from 5 to adult. In fact, one of my students lives in Lake Placid, and we play together in Lake Placid Institute that we were invited to join a few years back when Linda Rosenthal was looking for an extra violinist to play fill-in in some of the chamber groups. And it's, frankly, it always sounds better when you play with a professional. And I did both coaching and playing, and I enjoyed it very much. It enhances everybody's experience, and people are there for a short time. They're adults. They want something inspiring. So it worked well for us, and we're very sad that it got canceled this year. But
Yeah.
we hope very much that next year we'll be able to
Yeah, looking forward
catch
to it.
up.
Oh goodness, I'm counting on that. I'm the idea of losing another summer is one that I can't even begin to ponder. So for your third piece, you actually have chosen one of my favorite pieces in the entire violin and piano repertoire. Do you want to talk a little bit about this wonderful gem?
This is, we're going to play the first movement of Brahms' first sonata for violin and piano. Brahms is very special to us. Everything that he wrote is a masterpiece. He started publishing his compositions later in life because he was very critical of the quality of his work. So this piece attributes to his mature style. It is incredibly beautiful. This sonata was inspired by a song called Rain Song. And the rain element is prominent in the third movement, which we're not going to play today. But just to mention that nature was a great inspiration to Brahms, as well as to all of us, right? So we'd like to play this piece for you. It has a very nice flow and has lots of colors, and we just want to share it with you.
Well, thank you in advance for being with us, but also for playing this this piece. As you said, it is a uniquely beautiful piece. By when I talk with a lot of players, they say when they play Brahms, it's always something very special, and I think you're about to hear why. So thank you.
Exactly. Thank you.
Wow. What a beautiful performance. Thank you so, so much. And thank you for this wonderful hour, for great music, great conversation. I very much look forward to being up in Lake Placid with you next year. Thank you so much to all of the attendees, both here on Zoom and
Yes.
also on Facebook Live. We will be back with you next week with another episode of Happy Hour, Lake Placid Happy Hour, I think is what we're calling it. But boy, thank you again, Anna and Sasha. And
Thank you.
this is me signing off. Look forward to seeing everyone soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to play for you all. It really means a lot to us.